Welcome to Sober.Coffee, a weekly coffee chat sharing experience, strength, and hope for anyone on the sober road to recovery. You can download Sober.Coffee weekly on all podcast platforms and check us out on Instagram at Sober.Coffee Podcast and on Twitter at Sober.Coffee Pod. To learn more about us and to help support these sessions, visit online at Sober.Coffee. Here are your hosts, two guys on their own path to recovery, Mike and Glenn. Let's join them at the coffee shop.
Yeah, let's join them at the coffee shop. How you doing, man?
Man, it was fantastic. Always great to be back in the coffee shop.
Which one's Glenn?
God, this studio is so sexy.
Yeah, it is nice.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Which one's Glenn?
Well, I just want to make sure. Usually we say, "Hey, Glenn, how you doing?" "Hey, Mikey."
Hey, Mikey.
People are not going to know who's who.
They know. Trust me. They know.
They know. My mom knows.
It's out there on the bathroom walls. They know.
Oh, jeez.
So the studio, man, is looking super sexy. There's more equipment in here than a Hollywood studio.
I know, right? Yeah. We always talked about going video. I think we did the wise choice, just keeping audio. I got a face made for audio.
Yeah, but people engage in different ways.
Yeah, true.
You know,
true.
People engage in different ways.
Some like vodka, some like whiskey.
Oh my gosh!
Well, you know what was funny? You
some
said
like lattes, some like coffee.
You said to me, this is just the way my brain works, because right before we went live, you said, "Oh, I got to get the lid off my coffee." I'm like, "Lid? I haven't heard that term since the '70s. That's what they used to call a bag of pot, a lid."
I never did pot, so I didn't know that.
Well, you know,
I didn't know that. Hey, man, I was golfing with a guy yesterday, man. He said, "I just really feel like getting high right now." I mean, a high level business guy. I'm like,
okay.
What? He did, but
okay, well, that you know of. I mean, you don't know what's in those vapes.
I don't know what was in those gummies he was eating.
Yeah,
I thought they were just sugar gummies. Who knows?
You know, right away I'm going to take it to a serious note, but you know,
oh, we are.
Yeah, I referenced the '70s, and you know, back in the '70s, I indulged. There's a line by Leonard Skinner in a song, and it says, "I've done everything in my life. There's things that I've done twice. That's my right. You got that right." And I would do, I did a lot of experimentation in the '70s, and it's so different today, Glenn, because in the '70s, there wasn't a danger zone. You kind of knew there were guardrails. At least you were getting pharmaceutical. Now you're not getting.
You mean the dealers had integrity back then?
Well, no, they were. They just operated differently.
Right.
But now with this fentanyl, it's showing up everywhere, and these kids are looking to get high or relieve pain, and they're getting dead. It's terrible. It's just terrible.
Yeah,
the numbers are staggering.
I would. I'm kind of glad I'm at where I'm at right now.
Right? Kinda. Are you kind of glad?
Well, you sit there and say, I'm glad I did things once or twice. Yeah, there's a lot of things I did, and I was glad for. But I'm glad where I'm at today.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
It's great to be back in the coffee shop.
Hey, let's unpack that a bit today.
Let's.
Yeah. So you rang the bell recently.
Yeah, I rang the bell recently.
Yeah.
Had 8 years.
8 years of sobriety. Continual, too. That's impressive. I mean, I
used to add them up.
Yeah, right.
I used to just take breaks and then add them up.
I had 3 1 years.
Breaks called relapses, but
right.
No, I did. I celebrated 8 years. Still haven't got my coin yet. I guess I'll go tomorrow in person and get a coin.
Yeah, go to the Sunday morning. I'll see you there.
Yeah, I'll go and get my coin. And but man, I'll tell you what. I spent some time the other day. Maybe we can chat about it. I just spent some time the other day thinking, 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
I start to break things up in percentage and say, well, what part of my life was, But my life is absolutely, totally different today than it was 8 years ago.
Yeah, right.
Not marginally. It's magnificent how my life has changed.
Well, do me a biggie.
Yeah.
I didn't know you 8 years ago. I came to know you about 5.
You want me to paint you a picture?
Yeah, about 5.5. So kind of, why don't we just spend a couple of minutes painting the picture of where you were 8.5 years ago, 8 years and a couple of days ago.
Excuse me, I got some frogs in my throat here this morning.
I have no drug reference on frogs in the throat.
I can't drink my coffee because it's too hot.
Oh man!
Excuse me, everybody. We've never edited it out, but
we might have to kill the
maybe
cough.
it's time. Yeah. So, well, first of all, I laugh because when you talk about the '70s, I've been driving around with my daughter. She's now a senior in high school. And all her favorite songs are from the 70s.
I know, right? Well, we did
I'm like,
something
what?
right.
I said,
yeah.
that's my high school song.
Yeah, right.
That's my high school
Hey, give me
song.
my music back.
I know, crazy stuff. All right, let me start painting a picture. So I'm just going to throw some stuff out, jump in, and you know. But just as we were coming on, and maybe we can finish with this, but you know, for the folks out there, you know, I'm going to paint a picture of 8 years ago, and I'm going to paint a picture today. And I understand there's probably people that can relate because they're living what I lived 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. I understand that. We have a lot of sober curious, a lot of struggling folks that plug in and listen to us because they reach out and tell us. So the only thing that I was thinking is, you know, and I'll touch on it a little bit, but my alcoholism was progressive. It got progressively worse over time. I didn't go from high-flying executive to homeless in a week.
But you did go from a high-flying executive to homeless.
I did.
How long did it take you?
Probably 10 years.
Okay.
Roughly. Mm-hmm. And I also lost things. So not only did my alcoholism get worse, my drinking got worse. I drank more. I got more shakes. I had more negative physical effects, mental effects, you know, progressively worse. And I think the brain kind of helps you settle in and say, okay, this is my new normal. Mm-hmm. You know, my life is half shit. Okay, I still got some good stuff going on. I can deal with the half shit, right? But then it keeps getting worse and worse and worse until you finally sit there and say, I don't know what to do next, right? And I lost things more and more and more along the way. You know, physical things.
I was going to say physical or like
material things.
Yes.
You know, so I let me just paint just do some bullet points. It might paint a picture, right? So then I was a crippling alcoholic. What that meant is,
wow, never heard that term. Yeah,
a crippling alcoholic. I couldn't function. I couldn't live without the next drink. I couldn't live with the next drink. Physically, I was shaking if I would go without booze for 4 hours. I mean, I was shaking. I mean, I just couldn't, and I had to go somewhere to get help. Every time I wanted to stop drinking, every time I drank, I wanted to stop drinking, I had to go get help. I had to go to a medical facility, a hospital, a detox, whatever.
And you hated the shakes, too. I've heard you reference that
a
bunch.
God.
You prayed to just get rid of the shakes.
I mean, I just, and that was, because I couldn't handle that, I just kept drinking. Because booze was the only, and then it just kept perpetuating itself. It's crazy, right? But then, so, you know, I just had to have that next drink, and then all the emotions came along with it, right? You know, all the fun words: pain, remorse, you know, self-hate, regret, loathing, blah blah. You know, I just hated myself. I was just lost.
Did the alcohol take that away momentarily?
Yes.
Like, okay, so you're like,
so
you weren't
cycle.
Remorseful, you weren't painful because you were intoxicated,
comfortably numb.
Right? Yeah. There's a song.
Yeah. Which I have a funny story I'll tell you later on that. You know, I had poor sleep. You know, I probably slept. I'm not even sure if I slept. I would,
out.
Yeah, I would pass out for 2 hours. I'd wake up and I'd be all agitated and, you know, stressed and I'd drink again, right? I'd pass out for another 2 hours. But from what I hear, that's not quality sleep, right? Today I get quality sleep. I kind of wish that I wore my Fitbit back then so I could see what my numbers were.
And how many steps did I take today? 8.
Yeah, I mean, literally. I mean, there's some times I never got out of bed.
4 to the bottle, 4 back to, right.
Sometimes I went to the bathroom. Sometimes I slept in the bathroom. You know, it was terrible. Poor eating. You know, I remember I would go 30 days without eating. I mean, I would just drink. So I was in poor physical shape, basically homeless. So 8 years ago, I was in a relationship. It was not it was a toxic relationship. That's probably the best way to put it. And I knew I had to get out. looking back, that drove a lot of. I mean, that was fuel for my alcoholism. That was fuel for my emotional imbalance, my emotional pain, whatever, angst, whatever, and that fueled a lot of my relapses and drinking, and so I knew I had to get out of there. So 8 years ago, I got out of there. Physically moved out. I read a book called Never Go Back from Dr. Henry Cloud, and boy, it helped me. He said, look, your life's going to be shit for 6 months. Get out, never go back, and trust me, your life will turn around in 6 months. He said, you'll be amazed at how great your life is. And he was right, but, well, mostly right. It happened in 5 months, not 6. But it really helped me get out of that relationship. So when I got out of the relationship, I was homeless. I had no place to go. So,
but you had a pile of money.
No, I really didn't. I mean, I probably at that point had $4,000 to my name. I mean, I had burned through everything.
That couldn't get you 6 months of rent.
No, and so my genius idea at that time when I left, I said, hey, I will go. I'll go find a sober living place because I actually looked at this nice little condo down the river. And the only thing I could think of is I will be drunk in 2 days, and I will die in this condo.
The environment was just wrong. It was just ripe for.
It was perfect.
Relapse. Yes,
and
right.
It was perfect for relapse. Right. It was perfect soil. So I said, hey, I'll go into sober living. So I made a decision. Hey, I'm gonna leave this relationship. I'm going to move out of here. I'm going to move into sober living. And that was my plan, and then I relapsed really bad. And I, relapsed in a work conference, 6 hospitals across the country in 1 week, and I landed up in an 8-day detox. And then instead of going into the sober living part of this program, I went into the 30-day rehab again part of this program, and then 3 months, I went into sober living. So I was basically homeless. I mean, I had a decision: am I going to go into this, rehab again, and then the sober living? Or there was a place called Lazarus House, and I was, with bunk beds, and they really worked with men, kind of rehabilitate their lives, help them get them back on their feet. So I mean, I kind of had a why in the a fork in the road and a decision. So I went to the rehab, and then 3 months of sober living. But I had no job at that moment. I moved out and I had no job. I had no money. I had like $4,000. And when I went into that program, I think they took $3,000 of it. Right.
How are you doing emotionally?
Well, that's my next one, man. I was lost. I had no relationships. I was at the bottom. I felt like a zero. I couldn't believe I was at where I was at. I mean, I just, like, my self-reflection, I was like, I just can't even believe this stuff, right? I had no purpose. I had no reason to wake up in the morning. I had a little bit of hope, but no purpose. And I sat there and I'm like, you know what? It was easily identified as my bottom.
Let me back you up a second. You said you had a little bit of hope. Can you go back to that moment and tell me, what were you hoping for? I mean, what was the string of hope that you had? That there was another bottle at the end? That there was another relationship?
No,
what were you hoping for?
I knew the bottle was not the answer. The bottle was a coping mechanism because I didn't have the answer. When I was on my counselor's floor after an 8-day, very painful detox, I sat on his floor. I couldn't even sit in a chair. I sat on his floor, and he looked at me. He goes, Glenn, do you have hope? I said, yeah, I think I got a little bit of hope. He goes, that's all we need.
Okay.
That's all we need. and so my hope was that somebody out there had a solution for me. Excuse me. And so that is clearly identified. Maybe in the moment, I kind of knew, hey, this is my place in life where I change gears. Right? I don't know. Looking back, it was absolutely my bottom. I surrendered, and from that day forward, I started living in the solution. Not just knowing the solution. I mean, it's one thing you hear big people that know the big book and spew the big book, but they don't live it. or they plug in AA as just a piece of their life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sobriety is my life. So that was then. I mean, I without doing a ton of drunkalogs, I mean, it was bad as it could get.
Yeah. Well, I think you brought me there where you were emotionally, mentally, physically, yeah, and we haven't even touched on the spiritual aspect, but I'm going to go ahead and make a guess that you were bankrupt. Zero. Yeah, you were bankrupt.
I mean, because I had 2 prayers I prayed to God, He never answered them, and I mean, I had nothing. I wouldn't say I hated God, because I didn't. God was zero to me.
You didn't have time or energy to hate at that point.
It was nothing.
Right.
I mean, it was
non-existent.
Yeah, it was
right.
like, pfft, you know, you've done nothing for me. There's nothing there. There's no connection. I mean, there's nothing.
So you took that little bit of hope, and you built on just that little bit of hope that your counselor saw in you, and I mean, your transformation story, and that's what it is remarkable. But tell me a little bit more about then today, I guess. Where have you landed today? How is 8 years so much different than the 8 years ago that you had?
Yeah, so the one key when I surrendered and with that situation with my counselor, my mantra, what I said to him and what I meant and what I mean today is, I remember looking at him, I said, I will do anything you tell me to do. I just cannot take another drink. I just can't do it. So that the surrender means I gave up Glenn's way, Glenn's will, Glenn's ego. I was ego bankrupt, will bankrupt. I mean, I was zero, and I had to lean on somebody else the next 5 minutes, and I did. So today, I mean, I just got chills. I mean, I just think of my life today, and if I could just for a second, I'm sorry, I should have been better prepared here, but I just saw something last night. So it says, don't be shocked. So this is something I just saw on social media last night. It says, don't be shocked when life gets good. You've been putting in the work. You deserve this, right? So,
was that from a Pepsi commercial, or
who knows, man? But you know, one of the things that we've debated was the miracle, right? So the way I look at a miracle is something not worked for, right? You know, if I woke up tomorrow and lost 80 pounds, that would be a miracle, right? But if I go to the gym every day, you know,
you lose 80 pounds over 4 months, you don't call it a miracle.
Well, I did the work.
You did the work, right?
Right. Now it's still amazing losing 80 pounds, but if I spend a year in the gym every single day and work it and live it and eat right and do the and if I do the work, is it really a miracle? Right? You know, it's like a brick wall. You know, if I woke up tomorrow, there's a monster brick wall there that I have no idea how it got there. That's a miracle. But if every day I go in and make sure the mortar's right and I got the bricks and I lay a brick every single day and then all of a sudden after a year, you know, there's a beautiful brick wall. I mean, I'm not sure if that's a miracle, right? Now, there's some things in me that helped me get through some of that, and that's, you know, so I'm not debating it too much, but it's doing the work. And so what I did by surrendering is I committed to doing the work that somebody else directed and pointed me to because I couldn't do it myself anymore. And I do the work, right? So I mean, that's 8 years. Folks have heard my story. But today, right, let's just talk about today. So I have purpose.
Oh, there you go. I was waiting for you to come full circle back there because you started up by saying you had none.
I had none. I mean, I had no. And when you don't have purpose, it's easy to get blown around. When you don't have purpose and you're not standing strong, you know, I think I heard a line, I'll probably get it wrong, but if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Right. Yep. I think you got that right.
Yeah. So I have purpose in my life today that is unwavering. And it probably will not change the rest of my life. I mean, I'm almost 60, probably for the next, 1, 5, 10, 32 years, how many years I have left over, that's not going to waver. Now there's going to be some refinements to it.
Well, there's going to be some goals that you're going to lay
there's
out
some
there.
sub-points,
Right,
some bullet points,
Right.
But here are some of my purposes. One is, my sobriety. And I think of January 6th, right? The most important thing in my life today is sobriety.
And that comes out of a daily devotional
Called the 24-hour day book,
Right.
written by Hazelden for AA, right? And folks, read it. It's the number one thing to support is my sobriety. And there's people that say, well, Glenn, what about God? Shouldn't he be first? And I'm like, no. For me, I don't have God unless I have sobriety.
Right, I tried that. I tried to have God and drink.
Oh, I had some beautiful God epiphanies when I was a handle in.
Right.
So
purpose, sobriety.
Yeah, and I'm a sober seed thrower, right? So I want my mess, my bottom, my pain to be a message for somebody else. And I've seen that works, right? So that's part of my purpose is, hey, I went through shit. Let me tell you about my shit so maybe you can avoid the shit or I can give you a hand and help you through your shit. So sober seed thrower. Second thing is, very quick second, is a spiritual seed thrower. I have unlearned a lot of the religious bullshit that's out there in this world, and I found how to have a relationship with God that totally changed my life. Totally changed how I deal with people, how I look at things, how I handle things. Totally changed ego. Totally changed. I mean, just changed my life.
And again, 8 years ago, non-existent. Today, the number 2 priority in your life.
Yeah, I mean, it's right up there, almost tied with number 1, simultaneous maybe. But
Right.
I mean, it is so key for me, and there's not a day that goes by that I don't, do things to feed that relationship.
Well, what I'll say from you and I and I'm saying this because I see it work in you, and that is that it's not compartmentalized. You don't just do the God thing Sunday morning at church and then maybe once a week at a small group. You're doing the God thing is intertwined in your existence, and that's what I hope other people do because I've seen it work for you.
Yeah, so that's that's another key part of my purpose. Next one is, I'm a serving dude. I mean, I have really committed to being a servant. Everybody around me. That means have a mentality of saying, hey, Mikey, what can I do for you? Right? What can I do for the next, struggling alcoholic? What can I do for the next person that I work with? What can I do for my next family member? Right? And I stopped keeping score. I think that's a key for serving is I don't keep score and say, well, Mikey, I did 3 for you. You only did 1 for me. I just give and I just serve. Today I'm also very loving and caring, and I define the word love as, caring more for you and your needs than my own.
That's
how I define it.
That's not the way of the world. That's not the way the world operates. The world operates and says, I'll love you. By the way, hold on a second. Here's the condition. I'm going to love you here, but here's a condition. And
that's
and
a score. That's a scorecard.
Yeah, right. Right.
So I'm always learning and growing. I mean, I'm a student, right?
Yeah,
I'm always pushing. Yeah. I have 2 superpowers. One is sobriety. One is spirituality. Right. So what have I done? Right. I mean, I have a full life today. I wake up at 4 a.m. and I'm
rocking.
Going. Oh, yeah. I'm going. I have a full life. I have a relationship with God. I have an amazing family today. I reunited with my 2 daughters who said, we'll never talk to you again. There's another cool word for that I forget. And they had these things called the promises of AA, and I'm living those promises. And I can remember the first time I heard the promises. I leaned to the guy next to me in a meeting, and I said, man, they're pretty cool. And I said, when do they start reading those? And he's like, Glenn, they've read them at every meeting you've been at for the last 2 years. And that's just where my head was at, right? I mean,
a couple hundred meetings and you never paid
I
attention
never heard,
to them, right?
You know, I was trying to decipher what people were saying. I was trying to wiggle my way out of something.
You know, by the way, they sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" at the 7th inning, just so you know that.
Oh, I've never heard that yet, so I guess I still need some improvement, right? You know, but when I first heard the promises, you know, I wrote down, you know, everything I wanted back.
Yeah.
Right?
You put a laundry list together,
that I had and I lost, right? Throughout
a house, a relationship,
all the shit that didn't matter, right? And I wrote it down, and a couple years sober, I looked and I said, hey, look, man, these promises are coming true, but it looks nothing
like what you had thought.
Nothing
it was
like that
be,
list.
Right?
And the only thing I can attribute that to is step 3. Mm-hmm. You know, Glenn was no longer in the driver's seat. Mm-hmm. You know, and fear of economic insecurity is gone. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, I never knew where my next $10 was coming from. Mm-hmm. You know, today I got $20. Right. You know, so you know, a lot of my insecurity, right, you know, is gone. And you know, so what has all that done for me? It gives me confidence today, sober confidence. I get peace, right? And people throw out these words. I don't know what I mean. Peace is when everything in my head, in my heart, is okay
for a moment.
For a moment. Hey, sometimes it's 5 minutes,
right?
And then it goes back to the chaos. It goes back to the head trash. It goes, but I get glimpses of time where, and it happens weekly now. I mean, it used to happen monthly, once every 6 months. Now it happens on a more regular basis. I get joy, happiness. I'm not sure what those words mean, but I feel good, right? And I have a lot of motivation today. I have a lot of drive to do the next thing, right? So the one thing, you know, a couple of things I want to end with. One is easy. No, my life today is not easy. What I've learned is...
Oh, I'm out then, because I was doing the sobriety thing because I thought life was going to be easy.
Well, a fulfilling life is not easy,
right?
And I heard recently, and I'm, you know, from this dude David Goggins, you know, he's like, hey, if you make the easy decision for today, your life tomorrow is going to be hard. If you make a hard decision today, tomorrow will be easier. So pick your hard. And I'm real. That's kind of the thing that I'm wrapping my head around now, is I'm trying to pick my hard, right? And I'd rather be hard for today, and I'm seeing the results of it.
Well, I think the beauty is, and we could probably do a whole segment on this, but I think the whole beauty is that, you know, you go into AA, and I wanted to hear that it's easy. I wanted to hear, but I'm sitting at a coffee with a guy telling me that it ain't easy. It's going to be challenging. You know, that's the truth. And that's what I really needed to hear. What I wanted to hear was, all right, follow these 12 steps and you won't ever have a problem in your life again. That's what I wanted to hear. The reality is, yes, follow the steps. Your life is not going to be easy, but it's going to be absolutely more fulfilling than previously.
Yeah, if you want a fulfilling, purposeful life, you got to do the work.
Right.
And doing the work isn't easy.
Right.
Pick your heart.
Pick your heart.
But what I will say is this hard is more rewarding than that hard. You know, if that makes sense.
It does.
Right. So just a little behind the counter.
Right.
Our next guest just walked in.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
right.
an absolute rock star in my mind. It's like having Peter Gabriel come into the studio. Yeah.
We'll have him sing a Genesis song in a minute.
So we'll wrap up this episode. And again, behind the counter, we do like 5 episodes at a time.
Right.
We hit the studio, so I can't wait to chat with Dr. John. But to close out, you know, I'd like to just go page 164 of the big book, A Vision for You. Right. So Dr. John just walked in, but you know, I just celebrated 8 years. So I was just trying to give a synopsis of then, and you knew me then. I know. He just said, look out for the 9th year. It's a bitch.
I love it.
You are right, sir.
Love it.
Okay, so here's and Dr. John knew me back then. And It's a different life today.
Let me stop you.
Yep.
Set this up before you read it, okay?
Please and thank you.
I've come to appreciate page 164, the statement called "A Vision for You." It's a quote from the Big Book, but the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous is broken down into two sections. There's 164 pages of, let's call it, text, and then the balance of the book, which is stories, relatable stories that you can plug into and find messages of hope. But I love A Vision for You because it ends at page 164. This is like now you want to put an exclamation mark on the end of this segment. This is the writers putting an exclamation point on the end of the 164 pages of text. And that's why I think it's so impactful for me.
Thank you for that. Okay.
Yes.
Page 164, A Vision for You.
Yes.
Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously, you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your own faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny.
Trudge.
May God bless you and keep you until that.
Love it, man.
All right, brother.
Good stuff. We are not AA, by the way. Here's our disclaimer. I'm going to do it real fast, like they do on the medical commercials. We're not representatives of Alcoholics Anonymous. Anyway, great session.
Or as Dr. John says, look out for the 9th year. It's a bitch.
It's a bitch. Love
All right,
it, man.
brother. I'll see you, man.
Talk to you.
Thanks for joining us for today's coffee chat. To contact the show, email us at podcast@sober.coffee. If you need immediate help, the AA hotline is 800-839-1686. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Remember, Mike and Glenn are sharing their own journey on the path to recovery. Any suggestions, medical or otherwise, are their own experiences and should not be viewed as professional advice. See you next week, and remember, there is a solution.
Stay safe in the city of Chicago. Beautiful city.